Welcome, everyone. I'm Kathleen McMahon, and I am thrilled to be back here today at JSDayIE, and I'm here today to talk about bye-bye weeds, digital gardening with Astro, SolidJS, and MDX. And before we begin, let's get some details out of the way. First, I want to give a huge thank you to Irene and Remo, and all the speakers, the event production crew, and the volunteers, and everyone that has worked so hard to create this amazing event for the second time in a row. And for everyone here for coming out, thank you, everyone. My presentation will be posted sometime after the event on Noticed. That's https://noti.st/resource11 after my talk. I'll also post the full URL on Twitter sometime after my presentation. You can follow me at Resource11 on Twitter, GitHub, and Instagram. But let's back up so I can introduce myself just a little bit better. So I am an engineer and a designer, and I like to speak about things. I'm an occasional cyclocross racer, very slow racer, in costume, of course, a lover of lights, beachgoer, sand dollar collector. It's literally the Where's Waldo of the ocean, lover of my cats Thor and Otis. I'm a crystal collector. Well, it's interesting how the lights came on that, but whatever. And I photograph the crystals, but Otis he interferes often with opinions about where I place my attention. So thanks, Otis, and Thor has learned to do the same. And he's very satisfied with that. But who can resist, my boys? And this is also how I manage my anxiety. So thank you for your patience for my intro. I'm also a senior design systems engineer at Northwestern Mutual, so I was all excited about that tokens and storybook talk right before this. And I work at Northwestern Mutual. And I love design systems. It's exciting work, and especially if you like herding kittens. That's my day. And it's always fun with many moving parts. And part of design system work includes, well, that lot of fluff and moving, and trying out different software stacks and choosing the best tool for your system, like Gatsby and MDX. But speaking of these two stacks, they are what I personally chose to build my own digital garden site. And that was back in 2020. And that's KathleenMcMahon.dev. Now, what is a digital garden? You're like, a digital what? Well, this blog post by Joel Hooks, he's one of the people behind Egghead.io, and he wrote in his blog post, and it makes sense to me, what makes a digital garden is interesting. It's personal. Things are organized and orderly, but with a touch of chaos around the edges. Now, I latched onto that idea about creating a digital garden and using Gatsby and MDX as my stack for a few reasons. One, I tend to love trying all the things, all the latest software, and at the same time, I struggle with making progress over seeking perfection. And if I'm not careful, I lean towards making big Lexus bows in my work versus tiny kitten bows. That's Thor as a baby. And I can hyper-focus on the details and make that perfectly crafted piece of software before shipping, to the consternation of every single engineering director out there. But that's heck on velocity, and I'm working on it. But the digital garden format keeps me in the kitten bow mindset. And so this way, progress happens, blog posts get written, new things get shipped, and things get out there. So it's just good practice in my personal practice and in my work practice. So fast forward a few years after creating this 4-page static site that it was literally a home page featuring some of my talks, about page, about me, to contact me, a speaking page listing my upcoming talks, and a writing page listing my blog posts with links to my post, linking to MDX pages. I noticed that my garden got weedy. And Gatsby had versioned up to 5.3, while my site was on 2.3. And I considered an upgrade and asked an industry colleague familiar with Gatsby how painful this upgrade would be. 3 versions. I knew the answer. 3 major versions. And yeah, ouch. But I was going to ask anyway, and after hearing the expected, yes, it'll be a pain, the advice also lead towards a little more obvious. If it's using JavaScript, it requires regular maintenance. Yes. But then it turns into a suggestion of using Squarespace, since it didn't require maintenance. And that kind of sounded to me like, yo, JavaScript's hard and maybe you're out of your league. Yeah, you heard that too, didn't you? And that made me do that. So, did you tell me something was hard? Okay, I started my spike-driven development phase, and by golly, I would upgrade this app 3 versions up, Squarespace my butt, put my head down, and 10 hours later, still shaking my head about that comment and that Squarespace suggestion. I am an engineer. I am not going to make Squarespace. I'm whatever. I love whatever. Do what you want to do, but especially when you were telling me you were doing Next.js and you told me to do Squarespace. 10 hours later, I came up for air, and after fixing all the new GraphQL changes and wrestling with the new Gatsby image API that changed, I was still mad about that. And I was starting to question life choices. I'm like, wait a minute, this is like combining Jello with shellfish. Like, this is not a great decision. What am I doing? I thought, I have a 4-page static site. Why am I using a whole JavaScript framework to render this? I have a 4-page blog site. What am I doing? Why am I using JSX to create HTML when you could just use HTML? Granted, I work on a design system. I love creating component APIs. I'm the last person to just say, throw it all out. But there are times when you need a 4-page site without throwing all the JavaScript at it. And it's something that's small, lean, performant, and doesn't need to be a spa. It needs to be a multi-page app. So, but also, the Gatsby of 2020 is not the Gatsby that is today. The Gatsby that was the hot static site generator 3 years ago is that everyone wanted to use has evolved into this suite of industrial farming equipment. And I don't need a combine machine when a hoe and rake will do for my needs right now. So it was time to weed out the complexity and choose a new framework. One that will compile right down to HTML, CSS, and only serve the minimal JavaScript if I happen to need it. So I looked around, and because there's a bunch out there, oh, hi, Astro, let's take a look at you. And so why did I choose Astro? Well, it's designed for building content-rich websites, and if you look at all their documentation, I landed on 2 words, blogs and portfolios. I'm like, okay. Then it was also talking about, well, if you're looking for things for, login, admin, dashboards, inboxes, and social networks, go to Next.js. I'm like, well, don't need that, so let's look at Astro. Cool. This is a safe bet. Oh, MDX support. I have MDX pages. Cool, can plug those in. Has post CSS support, spelling error. Support. I can just port over my CSS without having to do something else with it, with much fuss. It has Astro islands. This is great. I have components in React. Do I want to convert them? I can convert them to Astro components, or I can keep them as React components and then convert them over time if I want. So I can slowly migrate my components over. That's pretty cool. And if they are interactive components, I can have them as selective or partially hydrated in this app. And I can also combine these components with different UI components in Astro. So I can share state, like I can try out Solid with React and with Vue in the same app, and I don't have to commit to one or the other framework. I can try before I buy different other frameworks, all in the same app, and don't have to make a commit, which is amazing. Everything all at once. So bleeding edge, sweet. And I can share straight between all of those frameworks. Love it. That's pretty cool. So, and MPA architecture, so multi-page architecture, feels a little old school, but server-side rendering, so it's fast. And the configs are much leaner. Check this out. On the left, there's the Gatsby config. So, and on the right is the Astro config. So on the left, this is me trying to set up post CSF, site metadata. On the right, Astro, I'm doing like some Gatsby and like the embed, so doing some embeds, setting up MDX, React, Solid, image setup, and build. Like on the right, that's literally my config. Done. On the left, okay, here's post CSS, site metadata, images. We'll keep going. Here's some plugins. Here's some options. Keep going. Icons, some more options. Still going. Oh, wait. Here's some more. Some more. Oh, wait, now we're to the node. Because I wanted to do some nodes. I wanted to create some extra nodes because I didn't want to have create my post directory in the source directory. I wanted to be fancy. I wanted to be cool. And I wanted to have my blog post in a separate directory than the source folder so I could dynamically generate them over there because I wanted to be really fancy and smart. Look at me. Look how smart I am. Look at me go. Let's add unnecessary complexity. And I can do GraphQL queries over there. Woo! I'm an engineer. And I can make absolute paths over here. How fun am I? Yay. But then we have the Gatsby browser, config as well, so I can have a wrap root element and do custom, like passing custom components over to my MDX file, so I can pass in style components and do things like React Live and have like editable components in there and have some fancy fun. And it's good, but maintenance. But on the right, look at this, one config. Awesome. So once I ported my components over, there were some differences, like just some small differences. React has children. Astro has slots. There are, I want to do this and I want to do that, but I'm going to look down there and you're going to look behind me. So like things like I can pull in my classes. Headers and footers can still port over. I converted my header and footer components from React to Astro, but it was like JSX to HTML. But since JSX is HTML-like, it was pretty one-to-one. And some of the other components, like an SEO component, was an Astro SEO plugin. So I just one-to-one over there. And the page title on the right was from Astro props. There's something else on the left. So it was pretty one-to-one other than the link over there. And there's some consternation with the link from React that I did not want to convert over. It made me really mad. But then there was a nice thing about Astro, because I am going to demo, by the way, because this is a little more words and configs, but I'm going to actually just dug into the code very shortly. This is the config for Astro. And what's really nice about Astro, and in version 2. Actually, now it's up to 3. And when I first did this talk, it was at 2.7. They have these content collections that was released in Astro 2.0. And in these content collections, you can define the schema. And in this schema, you can do type safety in, say you're using Markdown. You're pulling in data, like I'm pulling in data from 2 files. I'm pulling in data from a YAML file, and I'm pulling in data from blog posts. So I have a YAML file to dynamically generate my talk list. And I'm also pulling in data from my MDX files. And in my Markdown files, I have front matter. And I can use Zod to have type safety to make sure everything in my front matter is type safe. So if I make a mistake, it won't render. And I can create a schema here. Create a schema, so everything will render And as long as I'm writing everything in so as long as I define a schema, and it will make sure that I'm writing everything in my front matter quickly, and it's making sure I am not making mistakes, which is really awesome. And then so you can create your collections, and you can also dynamically generate your routes with this one page that you put in a post folder. It's your slug. And so you import the Astro contents get collection. I don't know if it's a method or what, but you import that and use the async function get static paths, grab your, define a blog entries, and do an async await function to get your blog collection, map over the entries with the slugs, and you can pass through the front matter, the data, and map in your content into your Markdown post layout. And you can just generate all your posts. And all you do is in your blog post folder, which I will show in a moment, because you have this slug file, and because you have this Markdown post layout, and because you have that schema, every time you add a file in this blog folder, it will just create a new file for you. So you just have like a setup, plug and play, which is pretty nice. So there's your type safe Markdown MDX, and which is using Zod. So what's another great thing with Astro is this image support that was experimental that just went stable and just got released a few weeks ago. So there is this image component that is imported from the image assets API from Astro. And when you import it in, like using this pattern, so you use image source, and the alt attribute is required for accessibility, and which is awesome is they require it, which makes me so happy. What it does, it not only renders the image in the alt attribute, it also puts in like some default sizes, puts in the async decoding, loading, so these other default attributes under the hood for you, so it optimizes your images. These are not for SVGs. These are for, non-SVG images. And this is for any images that are put in the assets folder in your source assets directory in Astro. There is another public directory that you can place images in that will not be optimized. So you have your choice of, do I have some images I don't want to optimize? Put them in the public folder. If I want them optimized, I put them in the assets folder and import them this way. So you have choices. But it's really nice to have these these optimizations available. And they've deprecated this other Astro Images API is now gone. So this is the new one, and it's stable. And they have this new thing, view transitions, which is buggy. I tried it out. It broke a couple days ago, so I'm going to show you that. But what I've learned, big lexospose versus tiny lexospose. Schemas are tricky with dynamic imports, especially with images. I had to learn a trick for that, which I will point out to you. CSS load order is no joke in Astro, because it's not just the specificity order, it's not just the file order, it's even the CSS load order in your Astro file will determine how the CSS loads on your page, because Astro, you're not doing a roll-up strategy for Astro at all. What Astro does at the minification, it basically will take each file and it will chunk the files into individual files for efficiency. But with this new view transition API, it has multiple files that it's loading and unloading one at a time to make sure that everything is working. So it's not just loading one file like in a spa, where it just loads one minified file. So you have to be very careful with your CSS strategy. So I'm going to demo that. And that's why view transitions are tricky and buggy, and that's what I'm going to show you in a second. And also clean up your files, because if you don't clean up your files, Netlify will break your builds. So let me demo some things for you. Let me demo some things for you in the code. I'm going to show you that other monitor, because we have 2 minutes left, so this is good to show you the two little buggy things. 5 minutes left? Okay. Oh, got it. So what I'm going to show you is I have 3 comparisons here. I have the comparison of doing this with a trackpad is awesome. This is the Gatsby. This is the Gatsby deployed site. So this is the, so we don't need to have the dev tools open. This is the Gatsby deployed site. So, responsive, it does things. 4 pages. So it does, it responds to, focus styles, Laura, I know you're watching. Tab focusable, all the things. And so this is the original site that was deployed in 2020. And I want to stay on this page because this is where I'm going to show you the original bug. And this is the one that's running right now on localhost. And this is the one that was deployed on June 27th. And I want to show you something. So, see this? See the gap? This is a deployed site. Running on localhost, this gap was not broken like this. So what's interesting is in the deployed site, if I inspect this, there is this extra class on here in the content wrapper that gets added that I did not add. See this slug? There's a new style sheet that gets added called slug from that dynamic root. There's a new CSS style sheet that gets added when the page is built and deployed to Netlify. And what it did was it took one of my CSS classes, which is this particular class in this class, which I commented out, but I'm going to show it to you. This particular class in my main file here. This class here, this stack class, I had to, this was one class, it was a solo class, and this class was attached to my index, my home page main element. It was just the main and the stack class were added. But because of the rules of specificity, because it had these sibling selectors, for reasons, it got, somehow these 2 classes got, moved up somewhere, Well, actually, it's the content wrapper this time. Last time, it was a stack classer. Now, so these classes keep on getting moved into this slug CSS file, and I keep on chasing this bug. Where does this class keep on getting added? But it keeps on getting added to this slug CSS file, and I keep on trying to find it. and find like a name collision and trying to find it and chase it and squash it. But when I get rid of it, then it pops up again. But is there something about the compile that is doing something weird with the CSS? -2. Okay, almost done. Then the next thing that I found that is odd with CSS is this. Get back to the thing. We have view transitions. So with view transitions, there's one thing you can do with view transitions is in your layouts. And also this this repo is open source, so I can also release this if you want to pull apart a repo. So criticize my code. Layouts. This is the main layout. And in this main layout, we have this common head. And in this common head, which is one thing that in the Astro docs, they recommend that you can make this common head Astro file. And in there, you can import the view transitions. And the pattern is you can, this is basically something you inject into the head element of your layout Astro file. And in there, in the head element, in the common head, you are placing the view transitions. And what this is doing is making this, simulating a single page app experience of a view transition in between each page. And what it's doing is simulating a fade between each page. And I have that going on this one right now. So I see the fades. There are no fades on, not this one. I'm going to close that one. We don't need to see that one. Window. How many do I have deployed? Too many. Oh, not that one. You don't need to see my Netlify stuff. Actually, you can see that one. Ooh, that has a flash of unstyled content. We don't need that one. Let's do this one. No, let's do the other one. There we go. So in this one, is that me? That was me talking to myself. So this one has no transitions at all. Because this one is from June. And with this one, it has the broken top. So it has no view transitions because view transitions weren't stable at all at the time. But this one does. So if you look, see how this is dropping down? And now watch the chevron, watch how everything is doing different things. And when you hit the back button, what it's doing is it's not unloading the previous style sheet. But when you hit the refresh button, everything resets. So there's a bug. In the view transition, there's this one API in the view transition where there's a whole steps on how it transitions and it waits for a style sheet to load. And it's not waiting for the style sheet to load the next style sheet, and it's not unloading the previous style sheet. So there's something going on in the view transition where it's not dumping the previous style sheet. And you can do something with the view transition right here in the view transition, in the component, in the layout. I could make that, instead of fade, I can make this slide. Not slide fad. I don't know, that's not a word. It's a little more stable, but it still breaks stuff. Because when I hit the back button, see how things are, the chevron, the background doesn't do what I need it to do. So it's not fully stable, but it is sure fun. It is it's a fast site, it's promising. But for now, I'm going to turn off the view. The minute I turn off the view transition, everything else works. All the rest of the CSS works. But the view transition, while it's buggy, it does identify CSS collisions. like any name collisions, it will identify any name collisions. So it is kind of a nice, like, it's buggy, but it's also identifying a problem. Like, you might have a duplicate name somewhere. Look for it, fix it. But getting back to my deck for a second, just to finish up, because we are at time. Basically, to wrap up, I like to do everything everywhere at once. And you might be asking, where's the solid? Literally, like, there was no use case for solid in this. I could convert everything to Astro in this. And the only use case I could possibly see was formic. But I don't want to convert a form. Anyone want to convert a form for me? Because converting forms are a pain. I tried to do it, and it broke. But I didn't port over card yet. Card is still in React. And I didn't port over the custom MDX components because React Live does not have support yet. So I'm working on making a custom code block. And I'm working on getting ARIA current working. And the SEO component I popped in an Astro SDO plugin. I'm still working on it. And that's all I got. So thank you.